Are your ulcerative colitis symptoms proving difficult to manage? Tremfya guselkumab can help you manage the cycle of UC symptoms. At 1 year, many patients taking Tremfya achieved clinical remission, and some patients also achieved endoscopic remission. Individual results may vary. Tremfya is a prescription medicine used to treat adults with moderately to severely active ulcerative colitis. Serious allergic reactions and increased risk of infections may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and TB. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or if you need a vaccine. Ask your doctor if Tremfya can help you manage the cycle of UC symptoms. Call 1-800-526-7736 to learn more, or visit tremfyaradio.com.
This episode is brought to you by Prime Video. In the small town of Holland, Michigan, nothing is ever what it seems. Behind the tulip festivals and pretty houses lay dark secrets that threaten to tear a marriage apart. Nicole Kidman stars in this darkly twisted thriller about a wife and mother whose quest to uncover her husband's secrets may get her more than she bargained for. Holland, streaming on Prime Video March 27th.
Halliday presents, in the red corner, the undisputed, undefeated Weed Whacker Guy. Champion of hurling grass and pollen everywhere. And in the blue corner, the challenger, extra strength Halliday. Eye drops that work all day to prevent the release of histamines that cause itchy allergy eyes. And the winner by knockout is Halliday. Halliday, bring it on.
You've maxed out your 401k, you're contributing to an IRA, and making some other investments. You're ahead of the game and doing well. But where do you go from here? The same old story can only get you so far. If you want a new take from a new type of financial professional, we invite you to get a fresh perspective beside an agent with the backing of New York Life. Insurance, investments, retirement, and more. Visit NYL.com to learn more. Investments are offered through registered representatives of NYLife Securities, LLC, member FINRA SIPC, a New York Life company.
Canva presents your work horoscope for this week. Deadlines are in retrograde, which we all know can bring some intense energy. Our advice, fend off this forecast with Canva. Like Canva whiteboards to counter creative blocks, and Canva docs for clarity in communications. If you have any sales deals coming through, results will be in your favor with Canva presentations. Manifesting many wins for you. It's a great week to love your work at canva.com.
Welcome back to another exciting edition of the Pointless Exercise Podcast. It's a Thursday, and we're going to talk with our friend Tom Loxas about the Cubs and the Bears. Do you want to talk about the return of your podcast?
Yeah, sure. For those of you who didn't follow it before, it's called Beers and Beak Eyes, and the whole premise is to bullshit a little bit in the beginning with some beer talk, and I kind of make whoever's on the pod join me in having a drink, whatever their drink of choice is. We talk a little bit about that first before we get into the sports stuff, so it's fun.
You really have to twist our arms to get us to drink beer on a podcast.
Yeah, we always drink beer during your podcast anyway, so it just gives me an official excuse.
What are you drinking? I'll turn the tables. I'm having a Pseudo Sue. It's been a while since I had one of these from Toppling Goliath. It's not your kind of beer. It's hazy. Yeah, I'm not a big hop fan. I'm having a Great Dane Black Earth Vanilla Porter.
That sounds good.
Pretty good. I will admit that when I grabbed it, I thought I was grabbing a vanilla cream ale. I didn't read the whole thing. I poured it and like, geez, that's dark.
That sounds good. Where is that brewery from?
That is from Madison, Wisconsin.
Okay.
I don't know if they applying tariffs or not.
Tariffs on Wisconsin.
My wife is waving ice cream at me. Well, anyway, I don't know if you know this. The Cubs are in Japan. Did anybody know they were going? We should talk about this more.
Yeah, I know that because Taylor McGregor has been posting videos of her eating in Japan, so kind of figured it out.
Doesn't look like Taylor eats much. She when they did their 5-year anniversary of Marquee thing, they showed a clip of her, and she's like, "Ooh, I don't even know who that is." She's like that. I'm like, "Well, Taylor, that's you at a healthy weight. That's what that was." It's like no one thought you were heavy when you were back 5 years ago, but you are a stiff breeze will blow you into the stands. No. I mean, she's an attractive woman, but 5 more pounds wouldn't hurt.
I hadn't really noticed that, but yeah.
I noticed it, I think, during college football. She was... I don't think she's dying of anything. I think it's a choice. But it was funny that when she made fun of, quote-unquote, fat Taylor, you probably weighed 120 pounds. It's like, yeah, it's fine, Taylor. You don't have to, you don't have to starve yourself to be on frickin' Marquee. Boog certainly doesn't. So the Cubs are in Japan. They're doing all kinds of crazy hijinks. Seiya's taking batting practice with a samurai sword. Did you see that?
Yeah, how's that work?
I don't know, but it looked staged. I mean, not obviously staged. It's not like but he perfectly sliced every ball they threw at him in half. And then he did hit the cameraman with half of a ball on the last one. It zipped over. And I don't think the Cubs have money. I don't think they have a special effects budget. If they do, they should use it on the bullpen. And then today, a lot of toasting, I noticed. Shōta and Craig had to do a little toast, a little tea ceremony thing when they first landed. And then today they got to take these big mallet things and break a big drum full of sake.
I did see that.
Which I guess that would be fun. And that's the one where Shōta made fun of Craig by holding the little hammer thing he had up over his head like he was Craig's fucked up batting stance. It's pretty funny.
It was a pretty good imitation.
It is. The Dodgers may have, well, they certainly have the best Japanese player, and they might have, the 3 best. I don't know. But the Cubs are much more fun. Seiya and Shōta have much better personality than the Shohei's pretty good, but the other two.
We'll remind ourselves of that when they're in the World Series. We'll be like, well, our guys were funny.
It's like, right. Oh, big deal. Yamamoto won 24 games, but does he mock his
by the
manager's batting stance?
Boy, did we have a good time?
I enjoyed. Read a thing on Bleacher Nation today. Sarami was setting his expectations for the season.
Yeah, I saw that. I did not read it, but I saw.
And the Bleacher Nation guys, they love to quote themselves. His the whole thing. It's like 6 paragraphs from last year's, just for comparison. And last year he complained that the Cubs were building an 85 win team, and they'd be lucky if they could win 85 games. So he was quoting himself because it all turned out to be right. And then in this one, his bold take was, if they don't win the division, it's a disappointment, which, yes, that seems a pretty obvious one. But he said, I think, like, PECOTA, I don't know, baseball perspective to PECOTA, one of them picks to win 91 games, one to win 84. And he said, I think they'll win right in the middle of those two. I'm like, okay, great. So basically the 85 that you predicted last year, they're going to do that again? Way to go out on a limb for that. I do agree with him that if they don't win the division, it'll be disappointing. I'm also ready to be disappointed.
Yeah.
One thing that I'm glad, and so when we did the podcast on Tuesday, the Cubs had not decided or hadn't announced if they were taking Matt Shaw to Japan. So Dave and I have like a good 10 minutes where Dave is advocating that they don't take him because he's not ready because he didn't have any at-bats in the spring. I'm like, well, he had like 16 at-bats already. He's like, oh, I didn't know he played. Yeah, take him. and we're both basically saying, it sounds like they're not going to take. Mooney had said that it looked like they were leaning to take Alcantara instead. And then right after we finished, I see that he did. So I had to record a little disclaimer for the beginning of the pod. Like, if we sound like we're idiots, we're not. We didn't know yet. Sorry. But he's going. And they took Brad Keller, too, which means that's two guys that are not on the 40-man roster.
Right.
So they now have to create two spots. One is pretty easy because Javier Assad, unfortunately, is going to go on the 60-day injured list. But another one, they have to actually drop somebody from the 40-man. They have to go through waivers then. But we know how good Jed is at getting guys through waivers. They seem to magically. It's almost like the guys the Cubs waive aren't any good. Nobody wants them. They get through waivers. It looks to me like there are three possibilities for Brad Keller's spot. So who would you take out of this three?
Okay.
Keegan Thompson, Gavin Hollowell, or Cody Poteet. Who gets?
I think it's gonna be Keegan. I think. I just have a feeling that other teams wouldn't touch him. With his recent history with injuries and just being bad or mediocre. But yeah, I mean, I would just guess it's going to be him. But yeah, could be Cody Poteet. I mean, they just got him though, so it's like I feel like they want to give that a shot.
It's like, oh, we got to keep that 30-year-old we got in the trade for. We won't have anything to show for Cody Bellinger. It's like, I got news for you. You got nothing. You got nothing to show for Cody. Cody Bellinger. Yeah, it's not worth hanging on to it. I don't know who Gavin Hollowell is, so he was pretty easy. I'm like, just cut Gavin Hollowell. Apparently, he pitched once this spring. Maybe he's hurt. Like, could just punt the whole thing. But I would say if you're Keegan, it's very bad that when he got to the gate, they went, oh, no. You think he was like literally at the airport and he's got his boarding pass, but it won't turn green. He's just like, it's just red. And he's like, what is going on? I think something's wrong with this. Is there a crease in it? It's like, no, you're not on the plane. What? One of the social media things I think Marquis did, I actually enjoyed. Did you see the one where they had the seating chart of the plane and they had the players like you could, so they had a seating chart like on an easel when they were going out to work out. And then they had all the guys going on the trip. They had their little headshots cut out and the guys could either tape their own or other people. They could pick seating assignments for each other.
Wow.
I was a little concerned how many of the Cubs wanted to be close to the bathroom. That seemed to be like the motivating factor. Well, I'm just going to go right here, right next to the... No, nobody wants to sit by the bathroom on the airplane, you morons. Well, I don't want to inconvenience anybody by having to get up. It's like, well, you want to sit by the shitter for a 14-hour flight? You know that Alex Cohen's going to be in there for at least 2 hours of it.
Oh, boy.
So you don't want that. But it was kind of fun. And the one guy who... I think Pete put himself on the aisle and then put... Justin put Kyle Tucker next to him, and Justin moved him because he's like, I'm not going to sit in a middle seat for 14 hours to Japan, Pete. So he moved himself, but thought it was funny. And then Seiya and his translator sat nowhere near each other, which I get because I think Seiya only needs the translator for the media. I think Seiya speaks pretty good English.
Yeah.
And I know that people, why do you translator at all for then? It's like, I don't really care if he talks to media in English.
Yeah.
As long as he can talk to his teammates. I wouldn't. If I was him when I'm over there, I would refuse to translate anything for my teammates. And be like, how do you like it? See, I go through this every day. You can't speak a word. Tough.
Well, Darvish was like that too, wasn't it? It was like he was fine with English, but he didn't want to take any chances.
Yeah. Sammy was fine except at Congress.
Yeah.
The only place he needed a translator.
Then the English got real bad.
I didn't blame him for that either. I think Roger Clemens could have used one that day. That might have been good. But they made it over there safely, which was good. Did you hear the terrible news though about Travis Jankowski? He has left the team. He is now a White Sox.
Oh.
Yes. So what are we going to do without Travis Jankowski? He was in camp for like a week and a half. And then speaking of the White Sox and the Cardinals and where else has Lance Lynn pitched? Apparently the Cubs are in negotiations with him, which I don't know why, but fine.
Did they just feel the need to replace Javier Assad? I mean, because it's like
I could be way off, but Javier Assad just reminds me of, he's like the Hispanic Lance Lynn.
He just needs the beard. He's got the glasses that he doesn't. We're not
same,
sure he really
repertoire,
needs.
Yeah.
Lance has got the beard. Javi's shtick is the glasses with no lenses in them. That's one thing I want. Like if I was still at the Athletic, that's one column I would want to write. What's going on with Javi and the glasses? Sometimes he wears them. Sometimes he doesn't. Remember in Toronto last year or the year before, they broke while he was pitching. He just pitched the rest of the inning without them. Didn't need them. He puts them up on his forehead sometimes. It's like, why? What is it? What is your prescription? I need to know. Why do you have them? Are they just so you don't get a baseball in the eye? I don't think it's going to save you. That's what I want to know. I'll give that to Greenberg. That can be one of his assignments. He can.
Yeah, we got to get on that.
It'll pay back for the time he made me write the entire column about the 2012 Cubs.
Oh man,
it's like, remember some guys with the 2012 Cubs. I'm like, I don't want to remember any of that. There were guys on that team that I didn't remember at all. Like there was a Japanese pitcher that I had no clue who he was. And
we talked about that
at all. It was quite an era of Cub baseball.
It was so bad, but the only reason why we survived it is because Theo was here and we knew, like the good times were coming.
I remember thinking it wasn't even really that bad. Like I remember Al Yellen is his famous how long must we wait Theo column that he wrote in like 2015. And it's
good timing.
I guess now maybe wait till the All-Star break, Al, and things are going to get a lot better.
I mean, not to go down that hole again, but they were even entertaining in 14.
Yes. I remember about mid-season of 2014 being like, this is working. Like, this is pretty good. And so really that rebuild was really fast.
Yeah.
It was, we knew in fact, you were openly rooting for them to lose games in 12 and 13 because we just wanted the draft pick.
Right.
And then by 14, they were kind of like, okay, we can start to win a little bit.
Yeah.
And they did. And then, but
that's when they made the good trades.
I really enjoed the impatience. Hub Arkush famously didn't renew his season tickets after 2014. This rebuild is interminable. Oh, well, I'm glad you gave it 3 years. Nice job. Go back to watching the Bears. How's that perennial rebuild going for you there, Hubbard?
I'm telling you though, like I had season tickets back then and they were really good. And I couldn't give them away. I mean, I literally would go drive down to Wrigley Field because I felt bad that they were being wasted, and I would like hand them to people, and they'd be like, "What the fuck?" I snuck up on this couple one time. I'm like, "Don't buy the tickets here." That was rough.
Did you ever have it where you left them on the dashboard of your car and you came back and the windshield was busted and somebody had left 2 more tickets on your dashboard?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. And remember this crap was on the last time I was on third base when I got to use my famous Ken Reitz didn't do anything with the Cubs, but he had one great quote. And when he said, the worst thing about being released by the Cubs is they make you keep your season tickets. I enjoyed that. I don't even know. Now, Lance was trying to fancy himself he was trying to tell teams he'd be willing to close. I don't know who was all excited about it. Yeah. As Dave pointed out, his first inning ERA the last few years has been horrible. So that's maybe not a great idea for Lance. He claims he's down to 260. Going to take some pressure off his knees. So we'll see if they really do sign him and bring him in. I'll just pretend he's Jason Mott.
Yeah.
He looks just like him.
Yeah, I just would not want a closer that throws 90.
Like you're not charming like Rod Beck was.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah, Rod Beck. I don't even think Beck got it up to 90 that year.
Do you know how old he was that year?
I know it's younger than we think. I think he was like 32 or some shit.
28.
Like that. No.
He was 28 years old.
No way. Holy shit.
It boggles my mind.
Oh
now
my
watch,
God.
I'll turn out that I'm wrong, but I just did a thing on him.
He looked like a vet.
He looked so old. Oh, get off there. I'm not.
No way.
29. I was off by a year. 29.
Holy shit. That's still crazy.
He pitched till he's 35. Took a year off. Actually, he pitched till he's 36. He was living in the Iowa Cubs parking lot in his camper.
The van down by the river. Didn't he live in a van like at spring training?
He lived when he pitched for the Iowa Cubs his last year. He didn't make it back to the big leagues. He was living in the parking lot in his in like a camper and having the time of his life. And like fans and teammates would hang out there after games in the parking lot and drink with him. Like he was living it up. He was having a great time. He's buried in his Cubs jersey.
No, is he really?
Yes, that was a request he made when he knew he was going to die.
Wow.
He said, I want to be that. For all the success he had with the Giants, and he was an all-star.
Yeah, I was going to say.
He said the most fun he ever had was when he played for the Cubs.
That's cool.
That really was that year is pretty incredible. 98.
Yeah, it was fun.
And I think we've talked about it. I know we've talked about it with the play-in game was basically like, and that was basically like they would just want to win that game because it was done after that. They were going to go play the Braves and get the shit kicked out of them, but you wanted to win that game, and that was like the reward for the season was to win, get into the playoffs.
And then at the same time, I really thought after that the first game, I think Tapani pitched, and it went to extras.
Mark Clark had to pitch the opener.
Tapani pitched game 2. Yeah, Tapani pitched game 2. Okay. Well, the opener they went to extra innings. It looked like they might have been able to pull that out, and then the rumor was that that Wood was back healthy. So I thought if they could pull off game 1, they'd have at least puncher's chance. But yeah, for the most part, you're right. It was all about that one playoff game, and they shouldn't even have been in that one.
Okay, so they you're almost right. The opener they lost 7-1. That was the Mark Clark John Smoltz game.
So am I thinking of game 2 then?
Game 2 was against Tapani pitched his ass off, and they had a 1-0 lead in the 9th, and Javi Lopez hit a home run off of him.
That's right.
And then the Braves scored in the 10th and won it off of Mulholland. And then, Kerry came back to pitch game 3 against Maddox and came back to finish off that ulnar collateral ligament.
Yeah. That was not a good idea. In hindsight.
How did he pitch? Let's look. Kerry Wood, 5 innings, 3 hits, 1 run, 4 walks, 5 strikeouts. Not bad. But it was just a terrible, reckless decision by the Cubs. Sure, send him out there. Why not? When Beck left, he pitched in 98, he pitched every day. And down the stretch, him and Terry Mulholland was incredible down the stretch.
Yeah, he really was.
He would start, and then 2 days later, he'd come out of the bullpen, and then he'd start again on his regular turn. He was pitching 3 out every 5 days. Rod was pitching every day. And the next year, 99, Rod had nothing left, and he had a 7 ERA with the Cubs, and he got traded, a waiver trade to the Red Sox for the great Cole Liniak, and pitched really well for the Red Sox. So he pulled something together. Cole Liniak reminds me a lot of a young Gage Workman. He doesn't really, but that's my transition to Gage. There are some Cub fans who are very excited about Gage Workman.
Yeah.
And Jed has gone out of his way to throw cold water all over them. The other day he said every team always has one guy that's super hot in the spring, and then he has a 520 OPS that season. And then he got asked directly about him yesterday before they got on the plane. And he's like, well, he could be a useful utility player, and he can kind of play all over. It's like a realistic expectation for him. But Gage in the Cactus League so far, because the Cubs are going to resume the Cactus League in a week when they come back. 424 with a 474 on base and a 727 slug, 3 homers, 13 RBIs, and 3 out of 5 stolen bases. So shouldn't he be the starting third baseman? mean, look at this. How can you argue with these numbers? This is all-star numbers from Gage Workman.
Yeah, I mean, if you're basing it off the spring, sure, but I really do feel like he's going to somehow make the team, and he's going to be the new Mike Tauchman.
Here's my...
There will be T-shirts.
Yeah. Oh, God, I hope
catchphrases.
So. Well, yes, especially because of his middle name.
Yeah, exactly. Tater.
Does he have any kids? Does he have any tater tots?
Oh, boy.
That's an old Ron White joke, I think. I get the feeling that Jed, it feels like Gage had too good a spring. Because I think I have a feeling the plan all along was Gage has a decent spring, and then they're going to send him to Des Moines, and so he works out a deal with his old buddy Scott Harris with the Tigers. They just make a trade, and they keep Gage because then you take the Rule 5 restrictions off of him, and you can use him like a regular player. Right. It's almost like he played so well, the Tigers are like, "Hey, maybe we would like to have Gage back. Why don't you see if you can hang on to him all year, Jed? And if you can't, we'll just take you back." Jed's like, "Ah, shit. Oh, there goes that." I will caution people as their excitement of Gage. Now, if you want to get excited about Gage Workman, I'm not going to tell you not to. I don't know why I would, but that's fine. Do you know who was had the second highest batting average in the Cactus League when I checked for the newsletter the other day? He had great numbers all across the board. And I'll give you a hint. If there is a Cactus League Hall of Fame, which there is, this former Cub is a first ballot Cactus League Hall of Famer.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
This episode is brought to you by Rakuten. If you're shopping while working, eating, or even listening to this podcast, then you know and love the thrill of the hunt. But are you getting the thrill of the best deals? Rakuten shoppers do. They get the brands they love with the most savings and cash back. And you can get it too. Start getting cash back at your favorite stores like Samsung, Expedia, and Sephora. And even stack sales on top of cash back. It's easy to use, and you get your cash back through PayPal or check. The idea is simple. Stores pay Rakuten for sending them shoppers, and Rakuten shares the money with you as cash back. Download the free Rakuten app and never miss a deal. Or go to Rakuten.com to start getting the most bang for your buck. That's RAKUTEN.
Oh, David Bodie.
He's lighting it up again for the Dodgers.
He is, yeah. He is like...
Is he coming to Japan? Did David Bodie make the Dodgers traveling roster? I have a feeling he didn't. He can continue to rip up the Cactus League while they're gone. Yeah, Bodie's been incredible again. Let's see. They option Bobby Miller. Well, they don't have to option him. He's not on the 40-man. They just don't have to do anything with him. So that's not going to help me. I'm not sure. I'll have to look and see if he's on. I didn't think of that. I thought, I wonder if Bodie's on. All right. So Gage, huge spring. And I give you spring numbers don't mean anything. But I'm going to talk out of both sides of my face. Because there's another Cub who in the spring has sported I like the batting average higher than the on-base average. Batting average 519, 500 on base, 1,000 slug, 3 homers, 11 RBIs, 2 stolen bases. Your 2025 National League Most Valuable Player, Pete Crow Armstrong.
Yeah, he's looking good.
I will tell you, not that anybody cares, but Pete, if he doesn't earn anything else this spring, one thing he did earn is in the DeCipio Fantasy League, he earned himself one of my coveted keeper spots.
Oh, there you go.
Yep, he should get you some. He should fill out a stat line pretty well.
I'm hoping, because I had to keep him as he's like my 13th round draft pick, given where I acquired him last year. So that should be fine. But old Pete,
how many guys you get to keep?
Keep as many as you want. The way it works is it's based on the round they were drafted in the year before, that you keep them 2 spots higher than where they were drafted. So if you pick a guy in the 10th round and you want to keep him next year, he's your 8th round pick. And anybody who is picked up on waivers who isn't drafted but is picked up on waivers during the season automatically is a 13th round draft pick. And Pete is a guy I picked up. Somebody else had picked him up first and then cut him, and then I picked him up I had him for his hot August. But if you have multiple, you could have a bunch of guys then that slot in at 13 because you picked up other guys, and that's what I have. So I have to figure out how to rank them. So I have Pete as the youngest one. I decided I'm going to keep him the longest. So he's going to be 13. So it was not an easy decision just because if he had the hot spring, I would have guessed I could have drafted him and not wasted a spot. But I think there's also, because it's a bunch of dopey Cub fans, there's like a Cub inflation where fun Cubs go rounds higher than they should because we just want to have them on our team. So
yeah.
So there's that. But yeah, Pete has looked great. And Dan Plesac, our old buddy, driving the blue Cubby Express, or whatever that thing was, says Pete is the best defensive center fielder in baseball already.
Yeah, I believe that.
I tend to think he's right. I think the underrated thing about Pete is Pete has a really good arm. Not just, he's ridiculous speed and he's just a great guy at tracking balls, but he also has a really good arm. So he's...
Yeah, I can't say that I've seen it a lot, but yeah, I have seen it.
Yep.
He is just fun too. He's an appropriate replacement for Javi.
Did you see what Javi did the other day?
Yes.
So for people who didn't see it, Javi was on first base. There was a ground ball to the second baseman. They were going to turn the double play. They threw the ball to shortstop. The shortstop threw. Javi jumped in the air and deflected the throw with his helmet on purpose. It doesn't seem like the smartest thing to do in spring training, but I guess you got to practice it sometime. I'm just glad to see that Javi was on base.
I didn't know he was still in the league.
I'm telling you, if the Tigers ever cut him and the Cubs don't pick him up for the league minimum, I'm going to riot. Would love.
Yeah, we've talked about that. He'll come back to life here. Maybe we could trade him back for Workman.
That could be the deal. Yeah. All right. So here's what we want. We're going to give you Gage Workman. We're going to take Javi back, and you're going to pay 100% of Javi's salary. Okay, sure. That sounds great. I was like, you're the morons that gave him that much money. You got to pay it. The Brad Keller thing, I've seen him pitch a couple times this spring, and I guess he's throwing harder. That apparently is the appeal of the great Brad Keller. It just feels like a guy who 3 months from now we're going to be like, do you remember Brad Keller was on this team?
Yeah.
They had to cut somebody so Brad Keller could pitch for a month and give up 9 runs and then get cut. We do it every year. It's a tradition unlike any other.
My feeling is that, and I hope I'm right, is that Council has his guys that he wants to see or keep. And I think it's good that he has, that kind of input, because it's kind of like the Ben Johnson thing now, where I feel like he's smart enough where it's like Pace has almost like a co-pilot, in picking players now. And I just feel like Council kind of has that with Judd.
Wait a minute. Are you saying you don't think Matt Eberflus was picking gems and suggesting them to Ryan? I think that was just one. We got to get Al-Qadim Muhammad. He played for me in Indy. It was great. Al-Qadim lasted like a week and a half.
Oh my God! Wait, I cringed so hard yesterday when I saw Jack Sanborn's tweet saying thank you to all the Bears fans, and he's like, "Luckily, I'm reunited with Coach Eberflus in Dallas." And I was like, "Oh man, fuck!" Like, could you imagine? You're like, "Oh man, thank God, we got a good coach now." You're like, "Warp, warp."
Yeah, when the rumors were coming around that the Bears were going to let Sanborn go, I mean, Adam Hogue was almost inconsolable. He's like, can't they let Edmonds go and just have Sanborn play in the middle? Would that be any different? Yes, it would. It would be different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would guess. I think Craig clearly is asserting himself more this year. I think it's year 2. It makes sense. Plus, he's the one with the job security. He can. Like Jed doesn't. Craig's going to be here next year, no matter what. Jed, we're not sure about you, so maybe we'll go with what Craig wants. And I was reminded of this when, just thinking about like when the Cubs finally decide it's time to move Pete up in the order, if he starts off and has some success, and just how much more I trust Craig to handle that than if it was still David Ross.
Oh yeah.
Like Ross would have him leading off right now because he's fast. That's how I say Dusty Baker. Well, he's center fielder and he's fast. He's got to lead off. And the second baseman has to bat second.
I don't know about you, but I don't foresee PCA being a leadoff hitter.
I think it. You don't foresee it because you think he's going to have a better all around. Like he's going to be more valuable, like in a more premium spot in the order. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Plus, I just don't think that he'll get on at that high enough of a clip.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe Counsell will be like thinking that the speed is enough to offset some of that. Even if he's got like, let's say a 340 on base, but I'd rather have Happ leading off.
This is why I like having Craig, because I feel like he won't get caught up in that stuff. Right.
Right.
Like I love the fact he has Happ leading off still. To me,
right.
that's
the right move.
That's Happ's perfect spot. That's where he should be. And Ross was going to bat him third no matter what. And Ross bat him third because Innie even had the quote, well, he wants to be a 3-hitter. It's like, well, then he should get more hits. If he wants to be a 3-hitter, he should get more hits. He's not doing it. The one thing he is doing is getting on base, move him to the leadoff spot, which is where he's at. I will be interested where Matt Shaw bats, because in the spring they've been pretty aggressive with it. But I don't know if you can tell anything from. It could be as simple as he doesn't have a lot of at bats yet. We got to bat him up a little higher to get him an extra at bat.
Yeah, I think that's part of what it is.
So they very consistently had Happ first, Seiya second, Tucker third, and then Bush cleanup, and then sometimes Dansby was hitting fifth, and sometimes Shaw was hitting fifth. It seems a little aggressive for Matt, so we'll see. He'll probably bat 8th in Japan, which is fine.
Yeah, I would think either 7th or 8th.
Yeah,
and I don't know. Has he been hitting PCA 9th? Because I mean, that's.
No, he's been hitting PCA about in that 6 and 7 range.
Okay.
But that could have been for the same reason, right? We'll get Pete an extra bat and we'll get him out. So it's hard to tell if you're, spring training batting averages or batting orders can be for a number of reasons. And it's just like the 26-man roster that starts the season is not necessarily the best 26 players, because you need to make a strategic decision about how you can keep the most players you want to keep in your organization. And the hardest time to get a guy through waivers is the final week of spring training, because teams' rosters are in flux and they're like, "Ooh, we'll take this guy." And if you just wait a week and get into the regular season, teams are far less likely to claim one of your guys because they feel like they've got their roster set. So
yeah, it's a good
there
point.
will always be, like, if you look at the roster opening day and then look like a week later, there's usually some key differences, because that was just a way of making sure that they sent a guy to Iowa to AAA because he had an option, and another guy made the team because he didn't. And then in a week they tried to sneak the guy. They switched him and it worked, because teams were like, well, we'd have to clear a roster spot for this guy. We don't want to do it.
Right.
But if you got a chance to keep Brad Keller, pass that up. Oh, before we get to the Bears, here's a little little trivia for you. You may have heard this too. So just common sense. What is the most number of inherited runners a relief pitcher can have?
Well, you would think 3.
3, right? Because there's only 3 bases. Well, Blue Jays
question in there.
Blue Jays reliever Peyton Schultz pitched on March 8th against the Phillies, and he had 4 inherited runners.
Okay.
How did he do it? It's a trick question, kind of.
I was going to say, there's got to be some kind of trick to this.
The starting pitcher for the Blue Jays was a ball of fire named Bowden Francis. Bowden struggled in the first inning. And so they took him out and they put Peyton in, and he inherited a couple of runners. And then because of spring training, Francis came back and started the second inning, because you can. And he had a couple of runners, and Peyton came in and relieved him again. So they used the same 2 pitchers in the first 2 innings. And so Peyton Schultz got to have 4 inherited runners in one game.
I don't know where I've been. I didn't even know you could do that.
Yep. You could take a pitcher out and then reinsert him if you want. And the Cubs did it with Steele, I think, once this spring. He'd thrown as many pitches as they wanted him to in an inning, so they took him out. But he still needed to throw more, so they let him go out and start the next inning. And I think he still ended up in the bullpen throwing at the end. But you could do it. So there you go. That's how that happened. All right. Speaking of the Bears, free agency technically started yesterday, but by Monday, there were 5 new Bears. They made trades for Chiefs guard and future Hall of Famer Joe Tooney, for Rams guard Jonah Jackson, no relation to Noah Jackson, I hope. And then when the free agency actually started, they got Falcons center Drew Dahlman. They got a guy from the Colts named Deo. I'm not gonna say, I don't have his first name in front of me, and there's no way I could say it right without
everybody's calling him Deo, so it's fine.
And then they signed Falcons Pro Bowler Grady Jarrett, defensive tackle. So if I had told you 2 weeks ago that by the start of official free agency, the Bears were going to have 2 new starting guards, a starting center, a defensive end to line up opposite of Montez Sweat, and an actual 3 technique, what would you have thought of that?
Yeah, it's very aggressive. And I thought the way they operated was pretty smart. Getting out in front of free agency with those trades, I was really surprised. And the only thing that tempers your excitement a little bit is the fact that, a couple of these guys are 32, but they can still play. They're not, they're not on their downside, really. I mean, and the other part of it is that they seem to be the kind of leaders that the Lions were missing. They didn't really have, guys on the lines last year that were, leaders. And both of these guys are. And then you got, Dahlman. The only thing I think I told you that I was somewhat iffy on him was that couple analysis I had heard from said that he's a little bit on the smaller side, and he's kind of a zone, scheme guy. But I mean, if Ben Johnson signing off on him, then I'm feeling really good about it. And that guy's 27, and you got a guy that's going to be stabilizing that position finally. And I think that's really important for Caleb. But the other thing I was going to say is regardless of the 2 guys that they got are in their 30s, I think it just gives them a chance to not only, rotate. I forgot, what's the defensive tackle's name? Grady
Jarrett.
I mean, they're obviously going to rotate him a little bit, but at the same time, he'll be their main 3 technique guy. The fact that they can still use draft capital on the lines, buys them time to develop some people with these guys. I think it's going to be, I think they're going to look a lot different, up front next year. And I'm excited about that.
I think the thing that is most encouraging about it is it now puts them in a spot where they can draft the best player at 10. Yeah. Regardless. It doesn't mean they're like, okay, we don't need an offensive lineman. Like if Will Campbell falls into your lap or the big guy from Texas, you count your blessings and take them. If Mason Graham from Michigan slides to 10, you just snap him up. But before, you would have been like, if a player at a position that you weren't, that you wasn't a dire need had fallen your way, you would have been like, oh, we need an offensive lineman. We got to take an offensive lineman. We can't take this guy. And that's a terrible spot to be in. And they're not in that spot now.
No, it's true.
One of the things that teams that have really great, well-rounded rosters, and you think like the Ravens have been able to do this for years, the Eagles have been able to do it, is if you don't have a glaring hole in your team that you're trying desperately to fill, it's amazing how many good players slide, and you're just there to catch them. And the best example is when the Bears had to aid in a bet is Jalen Carter falling to the Eagles a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
The Eagles could do it. They didn't really need him, but they could do it for 2 reasons. Number one, they didn't really have they didn't have to sit where they were and be like, we have to, like for example, we don't have to draft a right guard this year. We can't take advantage of it. And the other thing was they had a bunch of Georgia guys already on their defense, and they thought, all right, we can handle Jalen. Like, he clearly needs an adjustment period to the NFL. We've got the guys who can do it. So they traded with the Bears, moved up, and took him one spot in front of where the Bears took Darnell. The Bears wouldn't have been in a position to, if there had been an equivalent of that at some other position this year, the Bears wouldn't have been in a position to do it. They would have kind of been stuck with like, well, we need a second edge rusher, or we have to get, whatever. We have to get an offensive lineman. And now they don't necessarily have to do that. And that should help the overall depth of your roster by just being able to take advantage of really good players that are like, holy crap, we didn't think this guy was going to be there. And now you can take him. Or before, you might not be able to do that.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't want to see them get cute and go after, Genti, which, if Ben Johnson wants him, fuck it. That's good enough for me. But I feel like I'd still go after the lines, or at least a guy that rushes the passer, if not protecting the quarterback. I still think that that's where they need to.
Yeah. And one way to look at it is with both Jarrett and with Tooney, you have really good players, but you probably have really good players for like 2 or 3 years.
Right.
Maybe 2 for Grady, maybe 3 for Tooney. Offensive linemen age better, as the defensive linemen do. Especially him, he hasn't had like a serious injury. Drafting a guy who you don't have to immediately cram into the lineup, who then learns, from those guys. It's easy on defense to rotate a guy in. And you got Jervon, and you still have Andrew Billings. So if another tackle you could easily find playing time for another guy if you get one. And if you get a stud, you're just going to play him. But yeah, you're right. I think the Genti thing is, it's supposedly such a deep running back draft that it just kind of seems dumb for a team with as many needs as the Bears. Yeah. Like, you don't have I just said, well, now they can take whoever they want, but there are still some positions where you have to read the draft. And if there's a guy who's almost as good in the second round, fill a more pressing need in the first round.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of running backs there. And I think I'd be happy. I'll go on record right now. I'll be happy if they get either of the Ohio State running backs. But I could see Poles always seems to fall in love with one guy in the draft. And I think it I don't know.
Ryan Pace did the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's
trading up for Leonard Floyd, David Montgomery. And when he traded up for Montgomery, other teams were like, he's a nice player. He was going to be there where you were. Like, you didn't need to do that. Or the ultimate.
Well, at least he was right about Montgomery. He was a good player.
Yeah. The one he was completely wrong about was trading everything one spot to get Mitch.
Yeah. Yeah. Oops.
I'd kind of like to see him. As far as like a Dunze goes, though, I still think that's going to be a good pick, but he almost traded up for him, and
yeah, that's like
the other players on the board that I would have been happy with too.
The one thing we got that wasn't even on Hard Knocks. That was like on the Bears, like their little half-assed in-house Hard Knocks.
Yeah,
was like Ian Cunningham literally having to he almost
take his phone
putting
away,
polls and sitting him down to reassure him that Rome was going to be there. Like, you don't have to do this. He's going to be there when we pick. Yeah.
Yeah, we all wanted him, but I don't know. There was a couple of other guys that were picked after him that are looking pretty good right now.
The pick that the two picks that drive everybody crazy now in hindsight are there were this year apparently no good centers in the draft, none. But last year there were a lot.
Yeah.
And when he took Kieran Amagaji, there were still 3 starter quality guys, projected NFL starting centers to take.
Right. Yeah.
And he didn't do it. And then he drafts Torrey Taylor in the 4th round. And why can I never remember the guy? He ended up punting for the Bears already had a punter on their roster who ended up punting for the Steelers after they cut him. They had almost the exact same stats this year. He literally had a punter. Torrey's a good punter, right? But he had a good punter already on the roster. Yeah. And they didn't have very many picks last year. And it's okay, you can't just, that didn't make any sense. You really couldn't use that on a punter. Now we'll probably have Torrey Taylor for 10 years and they'll be fine. But you had line needs you needed to address, and you had a couple of premium picks to do it with, and you took a developmental injured left tackle out of Yale, and you took a punter with the 3rd and 4th round picks, and that's not great. And let's hope
he got a little cocky. I think
hopefully that's Ben's spot to go. Where do you have a punter, right? We don't need a 4th round punter again. We're good. Let's see. They also added Cole Kmet's former Notre Dame teammate and tight end room buddy Durham Smythe. He's right now the 2nd tight end. They're expected to draft one. And then today they signed Commanders' 3rd wideout Olamide Zacchaeus.
I'm glad you said it.
Who's actually he's a pretty good player. He's a true.
No, I like him. Yeah.
He is he's a slot receiver. He's a 3rd receiver. He's a good special teams player. He's a good punt returner.
That's a great overall guy to have in your receiver room. No, it was good pickup.
And it was kind of a trade because right after that was announced, the Commanders announced they signed Bears defensive end Jacob Martin. Do you have any recollection of who Jacob Martin is?
Not at all.
I didn't remember him either. 3 sacks last year somehow. For the Bears?
Whoa, really? Wow.
Yeah. He got a 1-year, $3 million deal to go to the Commanders.
Okay.
So I'll take that trade. Yeah, that will signal, as if it wasn't already signaled, the end of the Keenan Allen era.
Yeah.
I feel like I have a feeling the overall net effect of having Keenan probably was fine. I do think he probably was good for Caleb. And he probably was good for Rome. And now it's good for him to get out of the way of Rome. Because Rome needs to get a lot more targets. But I also think the way they used him, more so under Waldron than under Thomas Brown, I think Keenan is the reason Cole Kmet didn't get very many passes. I think they were forcing the ball to the aged 3rd receiver, running a lot of the same routes that your tight end should have been running.
Yeah, that's it.
So I think it's fine that Keenan is gone. That's their other 4th round pick that they didn't draft alignment with. They traded for Keenan instead.
Yeah, there's been some talk that they might actually be really interested in the tight end from Penn State. I can't remember his name, but
is that Tyler Warren?
Yeah, there's I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me if Ben came in and been like, "Yeah, I'm not in love with Kmet." Maybe it's not his type of, or at least not for a guy who fits his offense as far as a pass catcher. So
yeah, I won't be surprised. It's funny. Everybody's like, Cole's just going to run all the stuff Laporta does. And it's like, well, Matt Laporta is a completely different athlete than Cole Kmet. Like, he's a lot shiftier. Maybe not as good a blocker as Cole. Ben might look at Cole as like, that's the perfect second tight end. Because they run a lot of he doesn't run nearly as much 3 wide receiver sets as most teams, and he runs a lot of 2 tight end sets. So he really values having 2 good tight ends. So I mean, if he evaluates him as like, that's Cole, the guy we want on the other side.
But Cole gets paid kind of to be like a number 1 tight end, though, doesn't he?
He does. That's why I think there were some that wondered if like they can get out of his deal next year like relatively cheaply.
Okay.
So if they do take Warren or they take a tight end in the second round, it might be a sign that a year from now they're going to clear up a little money. The other thing they've done with all the guys they signed and even the guys they traded for, Jackson got an extra year put on his deal, and they're working on an extension with Tooney, but nobody is going to get extended beyond Caleb's 5th year. So they're still keeping like the payroll is being kept in shape for the mega contract you have to pay the quarterback if he turns out to be a star. So they're still in good financial position.
Well, that's
how
smart,
surprised were you that Justin Fields is a Jet?
I'm surprised because I don't know how the Steelers let him go. I mean, it's almost like they're saying it's better to have no quarterback at all. And weren't we just like, I feel like we were just having a town hall on the score over like we keep
QB1
or Caleb. And now the Steelers just were like, we're good.
It was funny though that people were like, I think the biggest favor the Steelers did was they didn't play Justin much after week 6 because everybody's like, wow, he really was good. It's like, hey, they couldn't throw the ball the first 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Like, they were winning games. Yeah, they were winning games. They were running the ball and they were running an offense from like the 70s. But I think what it shows you is that deal he got from the Jets, originally you look at, it's like 2 years, $60 million, right? Or something. Or 3, I forget what it is. Anyway, basically though, the way it's structured is it's basically a 1 year, $15 million. It's 2 years, $30 million with 20 guaranteed. But it's really a 1 year, $15 million contract. So if that was better, what was he getting offered from the Steelers? Because it couldn't have been better than that, or he would have stayed.
No, it's pretty obvious that they didn't factor him in. And I'm happy for him that he got a pretty decent deal with the Jets, but it's just going to be, it looks like they're either going to just try to run the ball and use him the way that you use him and just maybe bring in a young quarterback. That's probably the move they're going to make.
Yeah. I hope it somehow works out for him. I was like, oh God, the Jets. Justin, don't go to the Jets. No. What are you thinking? He will have Garrett Wilson, who was his prime target when he was at Ohio State. So maybe that'll work. It just seems pretty clear that the Jets are treating this like they're treating it like it's a 1 year deal. And if he has success, then they'll worry about it next year and try to get him long term. But yeah, the whole quarterback thing has been odd with Pete Carroll, helping orchestrate a trade to get Geno Smith to the Raiders. Now they have to give him a big extension. Geno Smith. Like, I know he's pretty good, but good Lord, you're gonna have to pay him. That's the thing. Like, everybody's, well, that's good money for Justin. That's like Andy Dalton money, the 1 year, $15 million, because Geno Smith is going to get $45 million.
Yeah, that's just
Sam Darnold got $35 million a year.
That's pretty much what he is, and that's pretty sad at his age. Just to be the Andy Dalton in the room.
Well, he learned from the best, so he knows how to handle it.
Yeah.
The other thing, though, people with these contracts, I'm glad that like NFL Network, and I think ESPN does it too, on the ticker they report the total, but they always put how much is guaranteed, because that's the real amount, right? Like there's a lot of puffery in those to make it seem like like the Darnold contract is like $100 and some million, but it's only like 67 million guaranteed. It's a $67 million contract. It's not 100 and whatever. You have the agent number. That's the number that if everything went perfect and you got every incentive and every whatever, that's what you get. And then there's the actual guarantee, which is what the teams figure they're probably going to end up paying you. But we go through this every year. And then you see Amon-Ra St. Brown complaining that the Bears get to sign every player. It's like, Amon-Ra, your team already has like a lot of really good players on it, which is why. And they have some of you, like he's extended, but some aren't. They have to like keep some of their money because they want to keep those guys. The Bears, not a lot of really good players on the team. There's a lot of available space and cap room to throw money at them because of this.
Other than quarterback, I would trade rosters with them.
Yeah. They it is funny. Maybe that was the expectation. They have a lot of cap room, and I think where people thought they were going to be really active. But they're going to try to use it to stave off losing a bunch of guys. You know, they're literally holding onto that money to try to rework deals and keep as many of the core as they can. And it's inevitable they're going to lose some guys.
Yeah.
But we'll see. But I was very heartened.
They definitely lost some coaches.
Yeah, both coordinators.
Yep.
But I was heartened to see the Bears, the approach they took. Whether it works or not, this is the right approach. They did a really good job of looking at the guards on the free agent market and going, these guys are going to get, like, what did Will Freeze got? Or Fry. I guess it's Fries. I also thought it was Freeze. His non-guaranteed number was like $66 million. It was huge. And it's like, he's a huge question mark. Ryan Kelly got a bunch of money from the Vikings, and there was thought he might just retire. And so the Bears looked at it and said, the best way to do this is just go get like already signed guys. And then the Chiefs thing, it's funny to me that, you know, because Trey Smith was going to be the top target for the Bears, and it made sense. And then when the Chiefs were going to put the franchise tag on him, that was like terrible news, right? The Bears can't go get him. But that is what made Tooney available in a trade. And they were a coin flip at best to get Smith. So this actually worked out probably better. And then when the Chiefs did it, they no longer are putting the franchise tag on Trey Smith. That they're just going to work out a deal. Because they have cap room now. They can actually sit down with him and like work out a real deal. So.
Yeah. I mean, plus the money you would have paid Smith would have been like pretty, ungodly for a guard.
Well, if they had to shop in free agency, they can't get all five guys then that they have.
No,
they couldn't get the equivalent of those five. They probably would have. Somebody else would have signed Grady Jarrett probably because and they'd be like, well, we're
and I mean, look, I mean, you don't need to have an elite guard, So the bottom line is it's kind of like a luxury. So, but I mean, Tooney is going to give them a chance to to have a really strong line for the next couple of years, no matter what they do to bolster it in the draft. But yeah, they have a chance now to draft somebody, whether it be a tackle or inside, and and give them some chance there to when he gets older. But with Smith, it would, like you said, it would have definitely limited their options.
Yeah, it would have filled that spot longer, but they would have had less.
But do you want to pay
less
guard
money for
that
other
much
players?
That long? Yeah,
right. But they're still going to need more guys. Like they don't have much depth. Basically, they have. Basically, right now they have a starting line with a still recovering from a knee surgery Braxton Jones at left tackle, and they have Amagaji, and that's pretty much what they have right now. Like they can bring Matt Pryor back. According to the NFL's complicated formula, he gets a pretty decent raise if he comes back to the Bears because of the amount he played. There's like a thing. He gets like a $2 million bonus because he played so much. But he probably is a guy they want to bring back because he was a tackle who ended up playing right guard, so he basically can basically back up all 4 spots on the line now, which is a pretty valuable thing to have. But they're going to have to draft guys because they still need offensive linemen. The idea you're going to get through with all these 5 guys, somebody's getting hurt. So,
no, definitely, and they've got three picks in the top 50, and it wouldn't shock me if Poles isn't in love with somebody and they don't love what's at 10, they might trade down because everybody you listen to says that the draft is pretty much anywhere from 10 to 50, the same guy.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
it does seem like it would be a sound strategy. The only issue would be if you get a whole bunch of teams that all think the same thing, so there's nobody trying to trade up.
That's it.
But if
unless someone's trying to get desperate for a quarterback, you never know because 10's a good spot.
Because it doesn't look like Shedeur, although who knows? Like he may very well be still available at 10, and you may get a team that's like, screw it, we got to get him, and they make a nice fat offer to the Bears, and the Bears are able to add extra picks. It does seem like you put yourself in a position to do that now.
Yeah, like I could see teams talking themselves into trading him for Dart too. Yeah. He might be the Bo Nix, of this draft.
Who was it? Somebody on NFL Network, Bucky Brooks, I think. He was getting made fun of. His newest mock draft has Cam Ward first, Shedeur Sanders second, and Jackson Dart third.
Oh.
And they're like, there's no way they're going to go that high. And he goes, we've got a month for the draft, and you're going to have a whole bunch of teams that as free agency sorts out are going to be left without a quarterback. And I'm not saying these are the 3 best players because they're not. They're not. None of them should be in the top 3, not talent-wise. He said, but teams get nutty and guys go a lot higher than they should. Now, I can't imagine it's really going to be 1, 2, 3. He may have done it just to illustrate that those other 2 quarterbacks are going to go a lot higher than you think because teams are going to get desperate. There are not enough quarterbacks to go around. And, how many went? What was Penix? He was like
8.
I forget where the Falcons picked. Yeah, was Bo Nix the last one?
Yeah.
Bo was 10th to the Broncos.
Yeah, and I thought both of those guys were drafted a little high for and a lot of people agreed with that, but they both look pretty good, especially Nix.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see Bo Nix in year 2.
Yeah,
but how much of that is. But he has Sean Payton, so that's
exactly. He's in a good spot, right? And they're a good team, so he's not trying to carry too much of the load.
Yeah,
it's
right.
Yeah, he's in a good spot.
And they want to run the ball, and they take a lot of pressure off of him. And they lived with him.
Right,
he was
Atlanta's
not good.
A good team too.
And he was bad. Bo was not good the first several weeks, and they just stuck with him.
Right.
They didn't panic, didn't do whatever, and he was playing really good football at the end.
Yeah. I could see, let's say a team like Seattle who just signed Darnold. Like, if you get yourself a nice guy that you could take a chance on, that's a good position to be in right there.
I think somebody should trade up to 10 to get Riley Leonard from Notre Dame, because I think every team should go for a quarterback who can't throw. That's exactly what you need. He's really tough. He's really tough. His teammates love him. He couldn't throw a ball straight from me to the garbage can, but why not? Give it a shot.
I did hear one of the draft analysts, I can't remember who it was, but someone said that he did open some eyes at the combine, so look out.
He will he'll do everything. Like, he will impress scouts, right? Like, he is.
Yeah.
He's a smart guy. He's actually, his teammates loved him both at Duke and Notre Dame. He was, the Irish were just lining him up and just ramming him in the middle of the line. And, hey, it's 3rd and 1. We'll try. We'll just ram Riley in there twice if we have to. But he's tough as shit. And the problem is he's a quarterback who can't throw. Other than that, it's great.
Well,
maybe the Jets will get him. He can back up Justin.
I was just going to say, he can get $30 million from the Jets.
Here's our running quarterback in waiting, Justin. We can hang out with Riley. All right. Well, it's good. The Bears, this is their time to shine, the offseason.
Yeah, I'm digging it. The last thing I'm going to say is that, there's a lot more and this could be like, complete bullshit at the end of the day, but I feel like with Ben Johnson in the room, I feel like they're a little smarter. So I think that it makes me feel good that he's signing off on these guys.
Yeah, I forget who it was, because I've heard a million analysts, but it was somebody that I liked who was talking about the Bears. There's two things that will immediately, this was even before these moves, he said will immediately be better, is number one, the whiny crap we heard from the Bears players and publicly last year, which was alarming. I thought,
oh my God, it was horrible.
Is over. They will not do that. If they do it, they'll be gone. But they said the other thing is, it's not just Ben, it's the staff he's brought in. They're going to be far better coached than they were.
Yeah.
Like at everything, like technically better coached and better game planned and better in-game decisioned and all that stuff. He basically was saying, even before you've started to upgrade the roster, you've already made a big improvement. And it goes back, and I've talked about this already, but that's the Lions, and as TJ Lang was saying, the Lions coaching staff couldn't believe that the Bears were as bad as they were last year. Or has poor results. They're like, this team should be far better than this. Like, there's talent there, and it's just, they couldn't understand. They'd watch the film to get ready for them. Like, why are they doing this? It was just a lot of, like, this doesn't make any sense what the hell they're trying to do. And that's why Ben was like, that's the place. He looked at it like, there's a lot of shit we can fix pretty fast. I'll go there. It seems like
that makes me feel good. I think that, maybe, he really wanted this job. He just wanted to go to Cubs games or whatever, but he really did sound like sincere when he said that he thought that this team was, talented. And at the same time, like I heard, last thing I'll say is like, I heard, I think Robert Mays was on, and he said, between Ben Johnson and Dan Rauscher, like the offensive line, if they'd even brought back the same exact guys from last year, they'd be at least competent now.
Yeah.
Because he said a lot of the scheme and a lot of the things that they were doing was just, really obviously bad to a bunch of the, people in the league. So
you'd see like all those guys who break down film, like Human Sports Bar, JT O'Sullivan, and the Tim Jenkins. Is that the Jenkins? Those guys.
Yeah.
One of the things you'd watch is they would be like, why is this guy blocking this guy? This doesn't make it. There's no way that in this play, he's supposed to block this guy. And there was a lot of that. Like, we'll just leave this guy unblocked so he can go completely assault Caleb, and we'll have three guys block this one guy. It's like, the scheme, just like everybody was like, what the fuck are they doing? So we'll see. Well, hopefully they can withstand the loss of Jack Sanborn and Jacob Martin. We'll see.
Yeah. Poor Jack Sanborn.
Yeah. All right.
Thoughts and prayers. All right. I'll see you on the other podcast soon.
Yeah.
Many of us have herpes.
Post-game show is brought to you by Christ, I can't find it. The hell with it.
It's fitting. It's got to be done with one of the best games of all time. Just unbelievable. Got to congratulate the Dolan family.
Sean, my podcast co-host Andy, you were his favorite player growing up.
Oh, thank you so much. Awesome.